Alright, this is gonna be long, so no stalling, no dishonorable mentions, we're counting down!
The top 5 worst movies of 2022. Number 5.
You know, I was kind of getting nostalgic for the direct-to-video Disney sequels of the 90s and 2000s, so maybe direct-to-Disney Plus sequel can fill that void. And like the old days, some are good, some are okay, some are this.
Aren't you tired of Ellie always telling us what we can't do? Yeah. Don't use tar pits as a bubble bath. Don't gargle with fire ants. Don't scale the side of an unstable 10,000-foot glacier.
So I watched the first Ice Age a lot as a kid, not one of my favorites, but it was a solid film. I saw the second one once, thought it was meh, never bothered with the others until last year when I saw they were all on Hulu and Disney Plus and thought, why not? The third movie is better than the second, but besides that, it's a pretty steep decline in quality. But I wouldn't say any of them were terrible, and they always had good animation. But after the fifth movie didn't do that great, I and many others thought the series would be dead.
But then Disney got their paws on the franchise, and now we get this thing.
I don't know who this is made for. This seems to be a movie that can only be enjoyed by kids under 8, but anyone under 8 probably doesn't care about Ice Age anymore. My only guess is that it is trying to pander to people my age, who were kids when the first movie came out, who now have kids of their own and maybe are trying to get them to watch it. That's my only guess. This movie is annoying. Despite the series building a very large ensemble of characters over the years, it chooses to focus on two of the most annoying ones, Crash and Eddie. Yeah, despite being called The Adventures of Buck Wilde, a lot of the movie is about these two. They were always annoying, and here they don't even have Sean William Scott and Josh Peck, and instead of Vincent Tong. And don't get me wrong, in this house we stand Vincent Tong, and he does a good job, but if Scott and Peck couldn't make them likable, Tong doesn't have a shot. These two annoyed the shit out of me, and even Buck himself isn't as fun as he was in the other movies. While the rest of the gang, which has been severely slashed in the number of characters, barely do anything. The animation is a major downgrade too. It's not awful, but it's clearly cheap. I wasn't kidding, this has the same feel as those direct-to-video Disney sequels. Maybe not to the extent of the worst, but not nearly as good as the Lilo and Stitch ones or the Lion King ones. Please, just let Ice Age die. The first film came out less than a week after my 9th birthday. This came out a month before my 29th birthday. If you're not gonna grow up like the Toy Story or How to Train Your Dragon movies, then don't bother. Just let the series go extinct like the animals that star in them. Number 4.
So we actually have a tie for the first time in a while between two crappy action movies from the beginning of the year. And
if I gave these two separate spots, I would have so little to say that would make most of this video pointless. First, The 355, a movie that tries so little to make you care that I think most of the takes in this were the first and only one they did. All of these great actresses, Jessica Chastain, Penelope Cruz, Diane Kruger, Lupita Nyong'o, are so stoic and boring. All of them come in, say their lines, and that's it. They'll be doing action stunts and have blank expressions and generic dialogue. It's like we're watching their rehearsal. Even a lot of the camera work is lame. You want to know how little this movie cares? There's a part where the characters see some of their loved ones die. They can't save them because it's over video. They can only watch as someone they love is murdered. After that's over, they spend a grand total of 1 minute mourning and then move on. That is the kind of movie The 355 is. Technically competent, but completely soulless. Blacklight, on the other hand, is more ambitious, but much more dumb and badly made. The editing in this movie is awful. There's weird jump cutting, which would be bad enough if it were only in the action scenes, which are awful, but even when it's just a character looking at something, it'll do that, and it got really annoying. Liam Neeson is the only actor who gives a good performance, and it's only because he could play this character in his sleep. And the plot is so dumb and trying so hard to be relevant, it's all jump-started with an assassination of a congresswoman who is obviously a stand-in for AOC, and then it turns out to be all part of some government conspiracy that is so convoluted it makes QAnon seem plausible. Now, unlike the 355, this actually got so bad it was kind of funny. There's a part where Neeson blows up a trailer as a distraction to save someone, but after a while it gets dull. Anything that isn't bad is generic. Generic score, plot, dialogue. The climax is one of the lamest in a big budget movie of the past few years. Both these movies are shit. Even picking one over the other is tough. I guess 355 is more competently made, but only slightly, and Blacklight is more entertaining, but again, only slightly. So don't bother with either. They both bombed, and good riddance. Number 3.
So I genuinely went into this with positive expectations, not just because it has like an 83% on Rotten Tomatoes, but nothing about its plot synopsis made me think I would hate it this much.
I don't need to care what anyone thinks anymore.
So if I have to guess, most people saw this as a dark comedy, sort of an election for the Gen Z generation, and maybe that's what they were going for, but the tone never gets dark enough for that. I only laughed once, and the tone is all quirky and feels closer to a Disney Channel movie than Heather's. And because of that, I ended up just loathing the main character. She is a sociopath who is willing to manipulate people into getting what she wants. Until the second half of the movie, where through no real growth, she suddenly becomes a good person. The main message in the end is that she was too good a person that she was able to be manipulated herself. But then you remember she was almost ready to roofie someone just to get a recommendation to Harvard, and sure, she doesn't go through with it, but good people wouldn't consider that in the first place. Even if she wasn't a dick, she was annoying. I hated her narration. She's pretentious and has a low opinion of everyone, and throughout the movie is proven right on all of her assumptions. This movie has very outdated views on men, women, gay people, poor people. It genuinely feels like something from the 90s. She assumes a guy is gay because he isn't directly looking at his girlfriend's boobs, and she's right. She practically forces him to join the school musical because, as we all know, all gay men love musicals. Her actions accidentally out him in front of everyone, including his dad, and it is treated as just quirky and not horrifying. As for women, they are jealous monsters who will physically assault other women because they think their man is in love with them, and the only reason they help the less fortunate is because they can use it for social media brownie points. And as for straight men, well, they're of course all manipulative assholes and or perverts. Her counselor, played by Christopher Mintz-Plasse, is a pedophile who wants to sleep with her, which is so new. I haven't seen McLovin play a nice guy pervert before.
Oh, and spoilers, go here to avoid them, but near the end she reveals to him that she has a recording of him asking her to sleep with him. And she uses this to get some other kid this recommendation to Harvard. This is done in the movie to show she is a really good person. But what a really good person would actually do is turn him in, using that as evidence so he doesn't do this to other underage girls.
This has so many gender and gay stereotypes, I thought it came out in the mid-2000s. Like, this is one of those mid-2000s tween girl movies I should be reviewing on Film Exaggeration. Except New York Minute, Sleepover, and The Perfect Man are actually less offensive. And don't tell me I hated it because I think movies shouldn't have unlikable female leads. I liked Not Okay, and I would much rather this movie had just been about a complete asshole in a world of bigger assholes. But it wasn't mean enough, and so leaves us with a boring, awful mess. It is well made and well acted that puts it above other bad feminist movies like Black Christmas 2019 or Good on Paper. But if you're gonna watch a bad feminist movie from this year, watch Don't Worry Darling. At least that was entertainingly batshit. This was just infuriating.
It must be exhausting, always rooting for the anti-hero.
Number 2.
You know, I watch a lot of crappy kids movies on streaming services. Normally I can have fun with them, but not here.
Can't be mad at me for being a dog. All dogs like to chase cats.
First off, that director. You directed Pixel Perfect and Halloween Town High. What happened to you?
But yeah, this movie is shit. Admittedly, I'm not a Marmaduke fan. My knowledge of the strips is very limited, and I never saw that live action movie from 12 years ago, holy shit. So I'm not the target audience, but there are barely any stakes in this. The first half, there's no conflict, it's just a bunch of gags. It felt like I was watching the Bobbleheads movie again. We don't actually get something until halfway through, and it's the dad's dumbass fault. If he wasn't an idiot, there would be no second half. The animation feels like B-rate Illumination, and the designs are just ugly. I hated looking at these characters. It was hideous to the point sometimes it'd be creepy. The voice acting is bad, like the voices don't fit with these character designs.
But I can forgive all that. I've seen a lot of bad animation. This movie is structured badly.
It is actually really hard to describe how badly this movie is written. You just kinda have to see it. Stuff that normally would happen at the end actually happens near the middle. Sad moments happen long before they logically should. They'll have odd jokes in those sad moments, thus ruining any drama that could happen. It'll try to put in everything. Every stupid, cliche plot point you could have in a movie like this, they will have it, even if it doesn't make sense. They add a love interest in the last half because we need a love interest in this heteronormative world. The fact that this trainer basically abuses the dog and it actually helps him become a better show dog means the movie is accidentally saying animal abuse is good. At the end, suddenly the bad guy can hypnotize people and another dog has magic powers? And as for the comedy, the only joke I laughed at was the diarrhea scene. Seriously, that part was kind of creatively done. But besides that, this movie is awful. Even as a drunk watch, it would get old fast. But hey, if you wanted an animated spiritual successor to Show Dogs, here you go. Please stay away from me. Number 1.
I didn't see that new Dinesh D'Souza movie, 2000 Mules, because I've already seen Absolute Proof, and from what I get, they're basically the same movie, although 2000 Mules is better made. But if you want some crazy politics, I did see this.
There are some women who say, and I've talked to a few who say this, they say, hey, you know, I'd like some privacy in the bathroom. I'd prefer not to encounter naked penises, frankly.
Distributed by the Daily Wire and presented by professional troll Matt Walsh, whose transphobia got at children's hospital bomb threats. I got ads for this a lot, sometimes in front of videos by trans YouTubers, and okay, obviously, I wasn't going to like this movie, but I actually ended up disliking it for different reasons than it intended. I'll be a little nice and say a few good things about it. It is better made than I thought it would be. There's some creative editing, and they at least stay on topic, and it flows well. Plus, they actually take the time to talk to people who disagree with them instead of just making this a preach to the choir movie. But a lot of its points don't actually work with what the movie wants to say. It starts out very sexist and shows Walsh is a terrible parent. He specifically says that boys and girls are so fundamentally different that he can ignore his son's emotional needs while being unable to understand his daughter's emotional needs because females are so complex compared to us males. But later on, it goes on about how boys can be feminine and girls can be masculine, and just because a kid has traits or interests usually attributed to the opposite gender, that doesn't mean they're trans, which I agree with, but I don't think he does given what he said earlier.
That's the thing. This movie isn't even good at being transphobic.
If I were TERF, I'd feel fucking gypped. I mean, yeah, does the usual transphobe stuff like show some trans women winning at sports and falsely saying that young children are having their boobs and dicks cut off, but it is actually surprising how bad this movie made by a professional bigot is at being bigoted. The pro-trans interviewees he gets usually make some pretty good points and come across as very level-headed and rational, only leaving when they realize Matt is trying to create a narrative. Usually in movies like this, they'd get crazy people or cherry-pick bad sides sound bites, but no. At one point, they bring in a trans furry to try and prove that not only are trans people crazy, but furries aren't just people who like drawing and dressing up as anthro animals, but genuinely believe they are animals. The interviewee says she can communicate with wolves, and I thought, oh, here's a crazy one, but then says she doesn't actually think she can talk to wolves, but can just listen to their body language, and it's like, yeah, that's totally reasonable. The anti-trans interviewees, on the other hand, are bitter and angry and constantly let their emotions get the better of them. I rarely have seen Jordan Peterson that unhinged. Matt even interviews a Maasai tribe in Africa who say that women have a vagina and men have a penis, and I think he's trying to say that it should be obvious that even these primitive Africans know what a man and woman is, which is a bit racist. But by your own logic, why should I listen to them? They eat raw meat and do genital mutilation. And then in the last act, it just becomes a vanity project about his own shit, like his book or appearance on Dr. Phil. I know many will hate this just because it's transphobic, and just to stick it to queer people, they release it right at the beginning of Pride Month, but it's not even good at being transphobic.
And in the end, Walsh asks his wife, what is a woman? And her answer? A woman is an adult human female who needs help opening jars. See you tomorrow, guys.